What's good? What's poppin'? What's poppin'? What's good? Okay. So, I'm back. It's been a little bit of a while, since I've been here on the YouTubes. And basically, I took a break because I got grounded at first, and then I was forced to stop making videos and stuff because I use my phone. And when you're grounded, you don't have a phone, right? I mean, a normal person would, right? Okay, so basically, after that, my brain just got into the habit of not uploading and filming and editing for a little bit. So after the week and a half, I wasn't grounded. For another week and a half, I just wasn't filming, editing, or posting. So in total, I haven't been posting 3 weeks. I'm still alive. Wish I wasn't though. Huh? Okay, so basically, it's October, which means my birthday was actually October 15th on Tuesday. I was gonna film me going shopping because I did go on a little shopping spree, but I just didn't. I just wasn't. I'm not ready to go out in public and film yet. I don't think. I think that's the main issue. Also, my mom's birthday was October the 19th, which while I'm filming this was actually yesterday. So, yeah. And she's going skydiving next week because that's what she wanted to do for her birthday, I guess. And also, this background. It's not permanent. It might be permanent as of living in this house, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna move because this is a 2-bedroom and we need a 3-bedroom. So that me and my sister can have our own rooms. So we're obviously gonna move sometime around. But as of now, this is what I have. I might add like just cute little things to make it look cuter than it does because it's ugly. Just like me. And so yeah. That's all that's new. Also, one more thing. It's October. I want to call this series Spooktober. Basically, I'm pretty sure that's not an original idea. I'm pretty sure somebody else has already come up with Spooktober. But basically, I'm just going to be uploading creepy or scary videos all October until Halloween. And I kind of got on it late because it is October the 20th. And I should have started on October 1st, but I didn't. Yay me. Now, let's actually get into this. If you read by the title, you know, well, if you didn't read the title, because, I mean, thumbnails are the main thing right now, honestly. But if you did read the title, then you know I'm about to read some creepypastas really quickly. And I'm not sure how many I'm going to do. It really all depends. But basically, I don't know if these are true or not. Don't take my word on any of this stuff because I'm just reading it off of Google. If you guys want to, you can do your own research about these, find out if they're true or not. Leave comments down below, let me know. But yeah, so let's get started. Alright, can I use your phone?
You're barking at my dog.
Okay, guys, so my dog just might start barking randomly. But I found the first story. It's actually called Grandmama's Teeth, whatever. But yeah, I'll insert some pictures as I'm reading. But yeah, I have my sister's phone because I am using my phone to record. But yeah, I'm just gonna read it right out of it. I'm not gonna change anything. And it's actually longer than I expected. So it really all depends on how many I do. But let's just get started. Enough with the blabbering. When I was just a little kid, my grandmother on my mother's side once scared the living poop out of me. Also, that was a curse word. So yeah, I am going to be changing a few words because they say curse words in this. But yeah, scared the living poop out of me. I've never forgotten that terrifying moment of my youth. Until now, it was just a fond memory of a silly little boy in his Scooby-Doo pajamas running down the hall and screaming at the top of his lungs as his grandmama gave chase. Looking back on it, it really was kind of funny. It was Halloween night of 1981. My little brother Nathan and I had been trick-or-treating in a small rural community of northeastern Ohio. I was the headless horseman that year, and Nate was the scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. My mom had lovingly made these costumes herself, and somewhere in a box there still remains a Polaroid of the two of us cheesing up for the camera. I really should find that photo. My mother and my grandma had taken us door to door as we collected pillowcases full of candy, apples, and the occasional nickels and dimes from the people that had run out of candy or had simply been not prepared. And of course, there was the inevitable toothbrush from the local dentist. We had returned home on the brisk October night, already sugar high on whatever treats we had managed to shove into our greedy little mouths. Before my mother had been given the opportunity to examine them one by one for the needles or razor blades, she would always do the while lecturing us with a story about a sweet little girl who hadn't waited for her mother to check the treats for these hidden tricks. The story the story went that the girl had crammed an entire mallow cup into her mouth and had promptly sliced off her tongue with a blade some sick person had hidden inside of it. She choked to death on her own tongue as a frothy blend of saliva, milk chocolate, and cream had bubbled up from her pretty pink lips. Her mother had attempted to remove the little girl's tongue from her dying daughter's throat with the blade still firmly affixed to it, and had severed her own finger in the process. The story never deterred us. However, a spooky jack-o'-lantern on our front porch still flickered dimly from within as we made our way up to the steps. I remember the crunch of the crispy fall leaves beneath my feet as I made my way past that pumpkin, and I almost felt as if he'd been grinning mischievously at me. Once inside, we surrendered our candy, took our costumes off, and were marched off to the bath as Mom and Grandmama played their traditional pumpkin punch. And whatever creepy film was on that night, once we had finished bathing and returned to the living room, Mom and Grandma would begin the painstaking and seemingly endless ritual of examining the candy. As each piece was approved for consumption, it was placed into a box on the coffee table. If there were many questionable treats, they would be placed in a separate small box under the suspicion that they required further scrutiny. It was many years later that I learned that this examination process also served as an opportunity for them to pick out a few choice morsels for themselves. Once the candy had been examined, the apples tossed out the back door. Who the heck gives a kid an apple for Halloween anyway? And any loose change deposited into our piggy banks, we were allowed to choose 5 pieces of candy to enjoy while we watched TV. That year, the movie Halloween aired for the first time on broadcast television. Halloween is a very scary movie. You guys should probably check it out. Well, if you're into scary movies. To you spoiled little brats that have grown up with a digital device in your hand, broadcast television meant that you had a metal pole in your yard with lots of smaller metal poles on top, radiating outwards. We called this an antenna. I know what an antenna is. Yeah, I know what an antenna is. There was a long wire that ran to a box connected to your television. The antenna received broadcast transmissions from television stations with reception range. If it was windy enough, our dad would take down the antenna so it wouldn't get broken. In rural Ohio, where tornadoes were relatively common, this was eventually the real kicker, was that if you were enjoying a show or a movie and then suddenly the President of the United States interrupted with an argument message from the White House, you were screwed because that person would be on all 3 channels, and God forbid you complained about it. With much apprehension, my brother and I permitted to watch Halloween that night. My father, being a stern disciplinarian, would have never allowed this. However, he was a truck driver. Fortunately for Nate and me, he was on the road that week. So we huddled under a blanket on the couch with a large bowl of popcorn and our little handful of candy and watched Michael Myers hack and slash his bloody way through the film as he stalked Laurie Strode. We shrieked in terror when we suddenly leap into view as frightening and ominous music would increase in volume and intensity. Announcing his arrival, we cowered in fear and shouted, "Run, run!" as he would slowly creep after his victims and eventually catch them, usually because they would unexpectedly trip and fall. We shuddered and gasped and sometimes covered our eyes with our hands as he delivered stab after bloody, gruesome stab to an innocent and frail teenage victim. Am I gonna get demonetized for this? I'm not sure. I don't really care either because I don't get paid from YouTube yet, so it's not my concern. When the film had concluded, Mom had asked us if we were scared. Of course we said we weren't, but all the same, we both knew we wouldn't sleep with but we both knew we would sleep with the nightlight on that evening. It was rather late by this point, and after all of the walking in the neighborhood, the lengthy movie, thanks to commercials, and the ultimate crash from the earlier sugar high, I was tired and thus completely unobservant. After I had finished brushing my teeth with the new treat the generous dentist had tricked me with, I went into the kitchen for a final drink of water and to kiss my mother good night. Nate was still in the bathroom as I made my way to my room, which was at the end of the hallway, off of the living room. Between my bedroom and the living room, and on the right side was my brother's room. Unbeknownst to me, my grandmother lurked within, and I hadn't noticed that she was no longer in the living room. My grandmother wasn't very old, in 81, her early 50s anyway. Her hair was beginning to gray, but her deep blue eyes were still very vibrant and piercing. Her least noticeable feature was also her prominent one. My sweet grandma wore a full set of dentures. She was fond of pushing them forward from within her mouth, crossing her eyes, and making a strange growling sound deep in her throat. Every so often she would chase little Nathan around the house like this, as he cried out with terrified and nervous laughter. I would get such a kick out of this, laughing as he ran and calling him a chicken. It was funny to me then. I was walking down the hall towards my bedroom, my toes sinking deeply into hideous plush carpet, the color of pea soup. I was rubbing my eyes with sleepiness as I passed Nate's completely darkened room, when Grandma crept quietly from within and into the dimly lit hallway. Her graying hair was intentionally tossed in disarray, and she was on her hands and knees, growling. Her blue eyes glared and glowed, and in her left hand she held those dang dentures. They were cackling together and chomping. They smiled at me. I swear to God, those teeth smiled at me. I shrieked like someone was like I shrieked like someone that has had a large spider cross their barefoot while toweling dry after a steaming shower. I ran towards my room as if the very flames of heck were on my butt and my pajamas were catching fire. And yet I could barely move. Every leaping step I made was being swallowed whole by the instable carpet. My head was turned towards my right, and out of the corner of my eye, all I could see was this monstrous withered and writhing imp chasing after me, its outstretched and gnarled hands snapping with sharp and glistening fangs that were slathered in dripping blood. The guttural sound my loving grandmother was producing sounded like a beast conceived by Stephen King and Satan's own drunken harlot. I was simultaneously frozen by fear and propelled by it. I finally gathered my footing, and with a sudden burst of childhood adrenaline, I burrowed into my room. I slammed the door shut and climbed as deeply into my closet as I could. A cool and clammy sweat had broken out of my forehead. My mouth had become as dry as a desert, and my tongue was a swollen sandpapery rock. There's so much. Yo. Alright. I trembled in the closet for what felt like an eternity. Slowly, my heart began to resume its normal pace as I gulped down several rage and calming breaths. I could hear raucous laughter echoing from the living room. It began to dawn on me exactly what had happened, and I chuckled nervously to myself. Eventually, I emerged from the closet and mopped out into the living room. My head hung low in shame, knowing that my grandma, had gotten me. The very same sweet, loving woman that had made the best chocolate chip cookies in the entire world had gotten me. That crazy old woman had gotten me good. Grandma passed away in 1994, right after I had enlisted in the army, and right before I shipped out for basic training. I was a total shame. I was a total shambles the day I found out. Because of the cancer, her death wasn't sudden nor entirely unexpected. But you know how it is. You just think, I wasn't ready, Grandma. I wasn't ready for you to go. After her passing, my mother collected Grandma's meager belongings and distributed some of them to my brothers and I. We were her only grandchildren, and I had been given her treasure sewing machine, a Singer. She was proud of that machine. She had taught me how to use it many years ago, and I still can. She had been a seamstress for most of her life. She had learned the trade at General Motors in Detroit, Michigan. She would apply upholstery to the seats of cars that were headed to the assembly line. As she got older, arthritis had reared its ugly head and made it difficult for her to work with her hands. She began to collect disability and survived as most do in the same situation. My brothers and I would help her in her garden every year because, as Grandma pointed out, seeds were cheap. Tilling the soil and planting vegetables, we spent countless hours weeding and trimming, dusting with insect repellent, and watering, always watering while she supervised. Teaching us a valuable lesson, she would she would she would can most of her produce in mason jars, and she would have enough to last her for an entire year. But she would also always send us out with boxes to those neighbors that she knew were also struggling to make ends meet. In spite of the poultry check that the government provided, her home was always clean and inviting, and always smelled richly of pine sol. She swore by it. She made perfect fried chicken and the best vegetable soup I've ever had. She was always a very kind and generous person. The very first thing offered to any guest in her home was something to drink or eat. For my 12th birthday and every year until she died, I received an annual subscription to Reader's Digest. She knew my fascinations with words and stories and installed that desire in me that never stopped learning. She had a heart of gold, that woman she always missed. My mother's 75th birthday was last November in March. She had to move into an assisted living home. My youngest brother made his first million in our aeronautical engineering last year, and he assured that Mom's new place was top notch and she wasn't spared any available luxury. As we helped her move into her new home, we had to pack up a lot of her stuff from the old one and put it into storage. I tended to the majority of it, but I hadn't truly gotten around to really going through the bulk of it to determine what was eligible for donation and what was necessary to keep. By May, she had slipped deeply into the depths of dementia, and if anyone here has had this same experience needed then I needed explain. It's tragic. In June, she passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was loved and missed as much now as she ever was. I tried to take comfort in the belief that she and Grandma would be up there in heaven, swimming in the clouds and basking in the glory of God. That is, until I found one particular box labeled Grandma. Did Ari break down the door? I swear to God. You put it back up for me. Well, that just happened. Last Friday was the first day of an extended weekend for the holiday. My plan was to take my wife and our grandkids out on this lake in the large houseboat that I bought last year. She and the kids declined. The wife isn't so fond of boating because, as you can see, her skin is rather fair and she burns easily. She's also not fond of the BBQ grill I had installed, terrified that a flaming sausage might take a flying leap from the grill and engulf the entire thing in flames. So instead of boating, I decided to at least try to make a passing attempt at sorting out some of Mom's numerous boxes of knickknacks. I went to the storage building in town where we had rented a large indoor climate control unit to store her things in. Thank God for small fingers. Favors, I mean, not fingers. Thank God for small favors. It was over 100 degrees that day. I had picked up a rather heavy box laden with some old precious memory moments, figurines, and when I did so, underneath it I saw another box, the one labeled Grandma. I carried it over to a dusty rose-colored recliner and sat it down on the floor. I eased down into the chair and leaned over to examine the box. It had originally held a window-type air conditioner, not a very big box, not somewhat bulky. I reached into my pocket and removed my small knife. It was a Gerber that Nathan had given me as a best man's gift at his wedding. I kept it oiled and sharpened. Everyone should carry a good pocket knife. I slipped the blade along the gap between the upper flaps, where the tape was held, and pulled them back. Inside, I found quite a few interesting items. I found Grandma's old King James Bible with our family tree hand-drawn and labeled in the very front. Little slips of paper with verses and notes were scattered within the pages, as well as a few 5, 10, and $20 bills. I had to smile at her. Those bills were surely intended for her grandkids to be slipped into a card and mailed along with the gift she had either made or purchased with her limited income. There were some framed photographs, some yellowing, but still clear and discern. Dis, skip it. What is that word? Discernible. This. All right, whatever. Let's just move on. There were several documents, like her birth certificate and an Employee of the Year award that was embossed with the gold General Motors logo. At some point, she had gotten it laminated. I was gathering up some of those papers when I saw the top of a familiar item that seemed oddly out of place. It was the top of a mason jar. Perplexed, I reached down and ginger. I don't know this word. And plucked the jar out of the box. It made an audible slosh as I removed it. I near dropped it when I saw what was inside. Grandma's dentures. I snickered to myself as I peered at those gleaming white teeth inside. I thought, dang it, Grandma, you've gotten me again. I sat the jar aside on top of the cedar dresser that had seen better days. I spent quite a few hours in that storage unit, sorting, rearranging, reminiscing. Before I knew it, it was near supper time. I was genuinely surprised that my wife hadn't rung on the phone. I pulled it out of my shirt pocket and looked at it, and I realized I would have missed her if she had called. There was no service inside the storage unit. Guys, there's so much. I can't even. Okay, it's not that much. Wait. Okay, I guess I can finish it.
Aria, get out the trash can.
Alright. I'm not exactly sure what possessed me to take that mason jar home with me that day. Nostalgia, maybe? I'm not sure anyway. On the drive back, I would glance at it snugly secured in the drink compartment of my pickup truck, and I would laugh a little, remembering that Halloween decades ago with that crazy oak who had chased me down the hall, hair askew grunting like a demon from heck while I ran for my life. As I joined my wife in bed that night, I brought the jar upstairs with me. I thought she'd get a kick out of the dentures as I pulled back the sheet and blanket of my side of the bed and climbed in. I sat the jar down on my nightstand. She just wrinkled her nose and said, "What is that?" I looked at her for a moment, grinning, and said, "Those, my dear, are Grandma's teeth." I then told her the whole story, and we both laughed at my recollection of that infamous Halloween decades ago. After I had finished my story, she picked up her hardcover copy of 50 Shades of Grey and began to read. Her usual routine before nodding off, I continued watching CNN for a little while until at last sleepiness finally overwhelmed me. I picked up the remote, switched off the TV, and returned it to my nightstand. Hey, Aria. I was about to turn off the light when my wife turned to me, removed her glasses, and said, "Are you going to keep that jar right there on the nightstand all night?" I asked, "Why not? They're kind of neat, don't you think?" She grinned and replied, "Well, I think they're kind of gross and maybe a little creepy, but if you don't mind them, then I don't." I leaned over to her and gave her a kiss and whispered, "Thanks, hon. I do like having them there. I don't know, it's kind of like she's here with me again." She blinked a few times, gave me a somewhat puzzled look, and said, "Well, that's just fine, I suppose." She closed her book, turned off her own lamp, and within a few moments was gently snoring. I dozed off shortly after. At first I thought I was dreaming when I heard a muffled clack. I sleepily dismissed it, and then heard it again. This time, urgently. Clack, clack, clack. The pungent aroma of pine sol stung my nostrils. I fully awoke and rolled over towards the nightstand. In the jar, Grandma's teeth were grinning as they greedily snapped down repeatedly. A mallow cup wrapper was swirling around in the water. Clack, 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 clack. Hours later, after the mess had been cleaned up, hugs exchanged, and drivers around left the sober Brendan climbed in his pickup truck with his wife in the center console. His grandma's teeth sat contentedly at the bottom of the mason jar with a partially eaten gummy bear bobbing around them morsely. Occasionally, as he drove, he would reach over and pat the top of the jar. Silent would thank his grandma for such a wonderful story. That's it. What do you guys think of doing the creepypastas? Do you guys want me to do more? I kind of don't though because these are super long, and I'm like so out of breath. I need something to drink. So comment down below what other creepy things I could do next time, like maybe reacting to gotcha stories or something. Something simple, playing scary games, not too scary, not ones that can possess me and stuff. But yeah, like doing that kind of stuff because I'm just really interested to know like what you guys have in mind because it is Spooktober and I need some ideas. So comment down below. Also, comment down below your favorite part of this, and I'll see you all next time. Aria.
Come here. Come here. Now you acting like you don't want to get up, but you over here whining.
This is my dog. His name's Aria. Alright, bye guys. Aria, shut up!